Hello everyone, I'm Mike Levin from MikeLevinSEO.com, and ever since I've gone independent I've been busting out with these videos about SEO and technology in particular, and I kind of wear my passion on my sleeve, so I thought I'd give you an idea of where all this is really coming from and how I've been leading up to something and, well, basically answering my background and origin story. Who is Mike Levin? So to really understand who I am, you got to look at the timeline with 2014 over here, 1984 in the middle, and just for symmetry's sake, we'll put 1954 over here. And I was born just shy of the halfway point back in 1970s. And to put this in perspective from computers, because a lot of what I'm about, I guess, is tied to computers, IBM ships their first commercial computer in 1954. It's a lot like a calculator. And then 1984, you got the Macintosh. And in 2014, I don't know if there's a single device that defines it. If it were 7 years ago, I might have said iPhone, but I'm just going to put wearables here. Things that fit in a room back here, got onto your desktop here, are just sort of fading away into apparel today. And so I was born in 1970, and computers were already kind of a background theme in the scene, but my story has to be told in the context of a big blue and red set of chicken lips right about here. Yes, some of my audience will be going, of course, aha. Well, my path took me from being a very artistic person, not really caring much about computers, until around my bar mitzvah where I got a Coleco Atom, and then I suddenly discovered and highly coveted the Macintosh. Could not afford it. Those 128K, yes K, not megabyte, Macintoshes. So I came back down, disappointed by the Coleco Atom, disappointed by not affording a Mac, and then suddenly I found my way literally into Commodore, with them being in the backyards in the boondocks of Philadelphia in a town called Westchester, Pennsylvania. And I loved it. They had this thing called the Amiga computer, and bam, everything about me was somehow or other related to Commodore. I met a lot of people who were, players in the emergence of the personal computer industry, the home computer. This is where a lot of those people were at. And then Commodore went away. So I had to shift what I was doing. All the things I fell in love with about the Amiga, no more. It was a tremendous heartbreak. Where did my focus shift? Well, it's not too difficult to guess. It's that giant M, Microsoft. The writing was on the wall. Microsoft was where to shift your attention. And that went pretty well. I had a decent career there. I got into web development, SEO, left most of my artistic stuff behind, but then suddenly the technologies I learned went away. Active server page, VB script, and everything changed. .NET came onto the scene, so yet another disappointment. By the way, there was a big dip here, and Commodore went away, and a big dip started to happen again. And a giant cloud of uncertainty hung over what to do next. A big question mark. And it's fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And I'm not going to be fooled a third time. So I went looking for, myself. My identity was very much tied up in computers by this time, and that search turned out to be about computers. My question is there not some lowest common denominator that you could learn once so that your knowledge and know-how could last 20 years? I mean, you could hardly get 5 or 10 years out of it before you had to relearn everything. So this education about computers quickly came to the fact that there's something like a motherboard, call it a bus. Inside that bus, there's a set of common components. A CPU, some sort of RAM memory. I'm going to put RAM. It's memory, but what it really is program space that your programs use to actually execute. And then there's some much larger set of memory we'll call storage. And this is more or less a Harvard architecture computer. All of today's computers have pretty much what they need in a package that looks like that. And then there is some sort of capacity for input and output with specialized devices, let's say special stuff. By a lot of measures, you could list things like the GPU out here, a graphics coprocessor, and touch screens and anything having to do with I/O with the user, screens, and basically everything that was special. So what did that leave this? That left that as generic. And if you had a generic computer, couldn't it have the same stuff everywhere? And if the same stuff was everywhere, wouldn't your work and code in fact become portable, so long as you were willing to forego the special stuff? So there's a lot of game development here and what today we think of as native mobile apps here. And so long as you did not eat of the forbidden fruit of special devices, the generic, general, underlying computer was the same everywhere. And shouldn't that mean that there is a universal same OS, question mark? And I started to piece things together, and this turns out to be something like the story of my life. Around 1970, when I was an infant, little did I know that there's another major occurrence here called Unix. Unix is generic. It's the same everywhere, more or less, making your code portable, and it is the same OS everywhere. Learn once, use for the rest of your life. And I'll put in parentheses Linux, because Linux is a Unix clone, and that genericness makes the Linux environment have many of the same advantages of Unix. So my little investigative path took this little detour down here. I had this aha moment. The missing piece that was always there that paralleled my very life. And I came back from the detour, answered the question mark, and realized that systems that have this generic computer right here is everywhere. It's inside desktop computers, it's inside your iPhone, and yes, it's going to be inside the iWatch, Google glasses, pretty much everything, including traditional computers and phones and everything that we know today. Now, all of these do have their own very special IDEs, which typically break down to Eclipse, Xcode, and Visual Studio. Xcode and Visual Studio are very much tied to vendors, Apple and Microsoft respectively. Eclipse a little less so. It's used for a lot of Google stuff and Java. But the point being that there is now a path where you can do things in all these worlds, not being beholden to any of the vendors, not having to invest yourself into proprietary technology and very particular views of the world that hold you captive, that risk obsolescence, and because it's kind of like the pea in the pool of technology, it's just not going away. I wish this were a bigger screen because I could draw this line going out here forever. The more things change, the more the universal truth of timeless tech knowledge will serve you, because nobody has the time to make this piece custom for every new device. It's going to get smaller and smaller until it's a grain of salt. But that grain of salt sized computer, you'll probably be able to connect in through a TCP/IP connection with a shell, or through a direct connection with a serial line, and CD around and LS, and if it doesn't have Unix on it, it's one busy box install away, and you'll be comfortable there. And I now am kind of on a mission to show people that this old school approach that underlies everything is a great place to invest your time and know-how. And that is kind of a great description of who I am, what it's about, where that passion is coming from, what my purpose now is, and the fact that I've really been at this for a very long time. My journey has been extremely consistent, full of realizations, and is now perched at sort of this perfect storm of becoming discovered and known and useful to a lot more people in this world. So there you go. I've rambled on enough. Please share this video, and don't forget to subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon.